There we go. So we should now be recording. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and then you should be able to see what I'm seeing. So hopefully that should pop through to you now. There we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. There we are. So I'll move that out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to do the pre-approval briefing for you, just to talk through kind of the stages that we're going on to. So my objectives for this session are to talk you through the LCTD quality and approval team, explain that approval process so you know what stages we're working through at the moment and where we're up to, introduce the learner journey so it's clear what we should be supporting the learners with at what stages and where the key points are. And then we're going to have an opportunity to explore the learner management system so you can see how we're actually going to support the learners, where the learning will be and how we create learners and so on and so forth. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. So the approval team is made up of Larry and myself, and we are quality assurance professionals with a vast array of experience in supporting and developing new and existing centres. So that's where we come in with supporting yourselves. So you've got our contact details there for our main office, and Larry's direct dial phone number and also my contact number. So if you need us at any point, you'll be able to contact us. So we're taking you through the approval process. So there are some key stages that you need to be aware of within the process. So it starts off with requesting approval to become a centre and to deliver qualifications. So I know Larry's already submitted the request for that to NCFE, who are going to be the awarding body, NCFE Cash. And that process is now underway. So whilst we're waiting for them to come back to us, we're putting together the centre file and supporting documentation. Now, when I say centre file, in the old days, this used to be a nice little ring binder in the centre and you'd have all the evidence in there. But moving with the times, we're doing this electronically now. So we're collating all of that information into the one location so that the external quality assurer, so they come from the awarding body, the EQA, can come out, sample all the documentation. Normally this would be done face-to-face in our centre, but most likely this is going to be done as a remote visit now. And they'll be able to go through and check we've got all the management systems in place that we need to deliver the qualification successfully and to a good standard, that we have the resources that we need to be able to deliver, and that we have the delivery and assessment plans in place so we know how it's going to be delivered, how it's going to be assessed, and it's going to meet all the qualification specifications. And that then we have the quality assurance section processes in place to support that delivery and uphold the quality of the assessment process throughout the learner journey. So these are the key areas that we're preparing the centre documentation for, and I know Larry's already been in contact with you to kind of work through those and make sure that he's got evidence, and that will be ongoing over the next few weeks as well. And as soon as we have details from the EQA about their visit, then we'll obviously let you know when all that's going to take place. So we're hoping by the end of December to have everything up and running and all the approvals in place. Now, obviously, when the EQA does their sample, if they do find anything that we aren't able to provide them with on the day, so it might be a particular document missing or something else that we need to show them, then they will create an action plan, and that will help us move towards that approval status. So those are the key areas, and I will go into these in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but obviously these are the things that we'll be supporting you with throughout the journey. But what I wanted to touch on first were the key stakeholders that are involved in the delivery of qualifications. So first off is the awarding body. So most importantly, our awarding organisation, our awarding body. So we're using NCFE Cash, and I'm just going to take you to their website now so you know where you can find more details. So this is their key website, ncfe.org.uk. But to find more information about their qualifications, if you hover over the login button and then go to Resources Dashboard, this actually takes you to Qual Hub. And this is where they have all the up-to-date information for the qualifications we're going to be delivering. So you can type in then the number of the qualification that you're offering into here, or search for it by name. And I know one of the ones that you're going to be delivering is going to be the Level 3 Diploma in Adult Care. So I've searched for that and this comes up. And on this page, it will take you through all the key information that you need to know about the qualification. So what the qualification covers, who it's suitable for, what the entry requirements are, how that qualification is actually structured, so how many credits it is, how many need to be made up of different combinations, and then how it will be assessed. So there are obviously lots of different assessment methods that can be used. And as we look into the qualification specifications a bit more, that will become apparent about the different elements that you can use to build that evidence base for your learner. So all of that key information is in the centre here. And then if you scroll down towards the bottom, you can see all the support materials. And this one at the top here is such an important one for you. This is the qualification specification. So this will show you the breakdown of the qualifications, the different criteria you'll be assessing against, and what evidence is required for your learners. And obviously then you've got further details down here, so you're mapping documents and the different principles that it's based on. So that's your awarding body qualification details. So they're our first key stakeholder in this process. But to ensure and uphold the quality throughout the journey, there are other elements, other stakeholders that will pull into this. So the next one I want to just raise your awareness of is Ofqual. So you may have heard of Ofqual before. They're the Office of Qualifications and Exam Regulation. So you can see you nodding there, so you're aware of these. So Ofqual are the regulators for the validity and safe delivery of qualifications, examinations and assessments within England. And obviously you can find more details here about Ofqual and the impact that they have on the qualifications that we deliver. And you can see here that they talk about regulated qualifications. So that is ensuring that we deliver an RQF, a regulated qualification framework qualification. So that level 3 NCFE qualification that we looked at is on the RQF. It is a regulated qualification, and that's going to be vital because I know that Boris Johnson's recently announced some healthcare funding that could be coming our way shortly. So if we are able to tap into that to support the delivery of these qualifications, we need to make sure that anything we're delivering is based on the RQF, on these regulated qualification frameworks, which that level 3 qualification for NCFE, I can confirm, is actually on that. So we know that we're on the right lines to delivering high quality training. So they're another of our key stakeholders, the Ofqual there, delivering RQF qualifications. The other one I'm going to raise awareness of is JCQ. So JCQ is the Joint Council for Qualifications, and this is their website here. So JCQ are all about ensuring the assessment process from exam administration through to delivery of the qualifications is upheld at all times. So they're a membership organisation that include some of the largest awarding organisations in the country. So you can see here NCFE are part of JCQ. And if you click on the exams office tab of their website, it will take you to this page where you'll find a lot of the essential documents that you need to support delivery of the qualifications. So that could be things from appeals procedures through to exam room posters, which are vital if your learners are doing exams. We need to have those up on the walls, through to the ICE, which are the instructions for conducting examinations to make sure that we're upholding that validity of assessment at all times. And there are other key elements here around malpractice and so on and so forth. So this is a really good resource for you to refer back to make sure we are really focusing on the quality of the assessment process throughout delivery. So that is JCQ. And then the last one is Ofsted. Now, I'm sure you're very well aware of Ofsted and the role that they play. So for us within the training and education sector, Ofsted inspect the services of the education and skills that we provide for our learners. Just making sure that we give that learner the best possible journey throughout their qualification with us, and we uphold those quality standards at all times. So these are the key stakeholders, and as we go through that pre-approval process and then on into the delivery, these are the principles that we'll be following throughout all of that. But don't worry, that's where Larry and I come in to support you and make sure everything's set up in the right way, that you've got all of those policies and procedures in place to help ensure that we meet all these requirements as we go through. Okay. So we spoke about the approval process, and I mentioned that there were some key areas. So I'm just really briefly going to touch on the different areas that the awarding body will look for and the types of evidence that they'll be looking to sample. So the first area is the centre management systems. And for this one, they'll be looking at organisational charts. So it might be you already have an organisational chart in place. That might be something that Larry and I can support you with, so that we can actually clearly show who's involved in the assessment and verification of the qualifications, who's actually going to be managing the administration process, so registering learners and monitoring the portfolios and so on and so forth. The curriculum and development plans we're going to obviously support you with, so we'll make sure that you've got those in place. And the qualification guidance we already spoke about, so that was the document on Qual Hub, so the NCFE website, where it breaks down the specifications for each qualification. So you're going to be very well aware of these documents. Make sure that whoever's delivering has actually got those and has read through them, so that they know for the level 3 and level 5 adult care qualifications, which are the ones you're starting with, exactly what the specifications are. And then centre aims, policies and procedures are the other thing that we're going to need to evidence. So from the 22nd of November, we're going to make sure that all the policies and procedures are uploaded onto LASER, which is our learner management system, and I'll talk you through that shortly. So we'll make sure that those are there, and then everybody involved with the delivery needs to be familiar with those before we actually start delivering the qualifications. So that's around setting up the centre, making sure those centre management systems are there and in place. And then the next area that they'll look at is the resources that we have available. So this will be your staff, so we'll need to provide CVs and CPD logs for any professional development that your staff have been involved in, to make sure that they are occupationally competent and that that knowledge is current and sufficient. So we'll provide CPD logs and any certificates to demonstrate that to the EQA. Additionally, we'll need DBS checks. So I'm sure all your staff are DBS checked because of the nature of where you're working. So this is just about making sure that we've got that all in that one location, so that we can share that with the EQA for their sample. So if you haven't shared that with Larry already, then we just need to make sure that those documents are actually shared with him, and we'll use the LASER system to do that. So again, I'll show you that shortly. The other element they'll be looking at is the accommodation and equipment that we have in place. So when I say accommodation, it's making sure that we've got appropriate training facilities, so a suitable room where we can carry out the training. And it might be that you'll have a flip chart in there or a whiteboard so that we can do that training. It might just be about having that quiet room where people aren't getting disturbed, that you can sit comfortably with the assessor and the learner, so that you can have those one-to-one sessions. But additionally, it's also going to be about making sure that we've got the online platform set up, because that's where the training is going to be delivered. It might be where we run the remote sessions, particularly at the minute, making most of that remote delivery. So it's making sure that all of that is actually in place to support the qualification. The last element that will be needed is the public and employee liability insurance certificates. So I'm sure you've got all of those in place again. So it's just about collating that into the same area so that we can demonstrate that to the awarding body. So these are the resources, and then we're looking at delivery and assessment as the third section. So for this one, we're looking at making sure that all the schemes of work are in place and the lesson plans support the delivery and how it will reflect how we're actually going to deliver the qualifications to our learners. And then making sure we've got assessment plans in place so that we can make sure that assessment isn't back-ended, it's not the forgotten about thing until right at the last minute, but actually that we're planning it out throughout the learner journey so that we're getting what we call the formative, so the ongoing assessment, and the summative assessment combined within there. So we'll put the plans together to show how we're planning for that to happen, just as we'll put in place IQA sampling plans to make sure that the internal quality assurance is planned for throughout the journey, so that we can check the ongoing assessment of the learners, as well as that summative sampling. So when we get to the end of the learner journey, the IQA can sample the final portfolio. Additionally, we'll need to provide induction packs to learners so they know what the qualification is all about, what they're enrolling onto, how they can get in contact with us if they need to, and so on and so forth. So we'll make sure that we've got an induction pack in place for you there, and that we've got the individual learning plans. And these are lovely little documents which will take the learner through where they are now, where they want to get to, how they're actually going to get there, so how the learning will be broken down, and then what their progression opportunities are. So you're looking at that end goal and how the learning that they're doing with us will impact on their end goal and actually support them to progress. So that individual learning plan will kind of track that learner's journey with us throughout their qualification. So again, we're going to help you put all these things into place, and that's the role that Larry and I will be supporting you with. We're also going to make sure we've got a learner contract in place so that the manager, the learner and the trainer all sign up to this, and everyone knows what everyone expects from each other, what their roles are within this actual qualification journey. As part of the induction process, you will carry out checking of the learner's prior qualifications. So it might actually be that they already have registered prior learning. So it might be accredited prior learning, or it might be recognised prior learning. So it might be things they already know but don't have a qualification in. And so we need to feed that into how it impacts on the qualification that they're studying with us. One of the key areas that you need to bear in mind is the safe and secure storage of materials and records. So obviously everything that we do is going to be under GDPR guidelines. So it's just about making sure that when we have logins to the learning management system, we use safe and secure passwords. That if we were to email any documents that have GDPR implications, that they are encrypted, and that we keep any paper-based materials in centre or exam materials stored securely so that no one else can actually access them, only approved people, and that they're kept under lock and key as required. And this will then feed back into the exam regulations, so making sure that all the exam regulations are upheld and followed at all times. So we mentioned JCQ, which are about ensuring that those assessment processes are in place and upheld, but NCFE also have regulations for the conduct of external assessment document. So as part of our training and standardisation, we're going to go through that a little bit nearer to the time, just to make sure that everybody is really confident with upholding the exam regulations. So that's delivery and assessment, and the last section then is around quality assurance. So this is making sure that we have all the policies and processes in place to ensure that the delivery we provide is to the highest quality throughout. So this might be making sure that we have file checks in place to make sure that all the documentation and checks and assessments are being done up front to make sure the learner is appropriate to enrol onto the right qualification. It might be checking the learner's portfolio and making sure that there are regular formative and summative assessments carried out by our IQAs, so the internal quality assurer. And it might be through to things like holding the regular standardisation meetings, so something similar to what we're doing today, through to focusing on the standards and making sure that everybody understands and interprets the standards in the same way and is looking for the same quality and standard of evidence as they're assessing portfolios. So we'll make sure that all of those processes are in place to facilitate the highest quality of delivery as we go through the qualifications. So those are the key areas for quality assurance. So that kind of takes us through the approval process. And as I say, that's where Larry and I are supporting you with that throughout. But I now wanted to just touch on the learner journey. So I know this one's a little bit small to read on the screen, but I just wanted to kind of take you through the key stages of the learner journey and touch on some of the key elements that are linked to those. And then I can take you into the learner management system and show how some of those actually marry up. And as I say, if I give you the highlights today of these areas, then we can focus on these in a little bit more detail when we get to that delivery stage. So the first stage of your learner journey is all about the enrolment. So you're going to start off with some initial information, advice and guidance for the learner. So telling them about the course, the qualification, how it's going to be delivered, what the expectations are, and finding out about your learner, what their motivations are, what their prior learning is, and how that's going to impact the qualification that they enroll onto. So you can talk about the number of hours that the qualification is predicted to last, so the guided learning hours. And then you can negotiate appropriate start and end dates based on how much time the learner can commit on a weekly basis. So once you've gone through that process, you can then create the learner on Laser, which is our learner management system, and I'll be demonstrating that for you shortly. And you can allocate the course that they'll be enrolling onto to that learner and schedule that first progress review. So that's all part of your enrolment stage, and then you can carry out the formal induction with the learner. And this is making sure that they're aware of the qualification and the awarding body requirements, and you can cover off the induction pack at this point with your learner, and make sure that they then understand how to use Laser to actually do their learning. Now, Laser can also act as the e-portfolio as well as the learning platform. So it's showing your learner how they can actually upload evidence to meet the assessment criteria. Now, obviously, we want to differentiate for each of our learners. So it might be that some learners don't want to use an online portfolio. They might want to go down the route of a paper-based portfolio, and that's fine. Although, obviously, we'd encourage them to use the online portfolio because it means that it makes sampling and assessment far easier. Anyone can access this system from anywhere in the world in theory. So when lockdown's over, we could be sat on the beach in some climes actually logging on, and the assessor can sample the evidence, add extra information through to the learner about what they need as feedback. The IQA or the EQA from anywhere could actually log on and sample, so we could carry out that formative and summative sampling. So that's why we'd encourage the learner to carry out, to use the e-portfolio system rather than a paper-based file where you need to be in the office and we need to ship it around to whoever needs to do the sampling when. So once you've done the induction and you've shared all that with your learner, they can carry out the About You survey. So this just captures a little bit more information about the learner, their experience and their motivations, and that can help you as an assessor to actually support that learner throughout their journey. We then move on to the learning stage. So at this point, we need to register the learner with the awarding body within appropriate timescales. So we need to make sure that they're registered, and at that point, that's when they can start collecting their evidence for assessment, and they can start building that portfolio. The learner will be working through the online learning modules on the system and making sure that they're covering off the knowledge criteria that they need to meet. But whilst there's a whole host of teaching and learning materials actually on the online system, there is also the opportunity for the tutors, the assessors, to actually upload their own resources into the library. And I'll show you that function on the system in a little bit. So it's really easy if your learner, your assessor's got their own resources, their own materials that they find really useful, then they can upload those as well. So as your learner works through, you'll be, as an assessor, creating a monthly work plan with your learner to share targets for what they should be learning or what evidence they should be creating for their portfolio, and it just helps to give them short, smart targets to actually keep them on track with their learning, so that you know that they're on target to meet their end date. And then obviously if your learner's flying and doing really well, you can add those stretch and challenge targets for them. Or if they're struggling and falling behind a bit, it gives you that opportunity on a monthly basis to help them refocus, work out why they're struggling, and put in measures to help them get back on track. So on a monthly basis, we do the work plans, and then on a quarterly basis, we would carry out a progress review. So before the first progress review, there's an additional survey that the learner can do on the system, which is the ongoing survey. And this will ask them about how they're finding their learning, how they're finding pulling together their evidence. And then that will give you a starting point for discussion in the progress review about what's working well, what they're struggling with, and what additional support they may need. So they can carry out that survey, that can be brought into that first progress review. And as I say, on a monthly basis, you'll do the work plans, and then on a quarterly basis, you'll have that larger progress review. You'll probably get the employer manager involved as well, so that everybody's collaborating on that. And then the next step on here is your assessment. So this is where we're talking about actually building that e-portfolio using a range of different assessment methods. So it could be something from learner producing some written work, it could be observation that takes place in the learner's workplace, through to witness testimonies or discussions with the learner, and so on and so forth. There's a whole range of different assessment methods that can be used, and that will all go into that portfolio. And then on a regular basis, the IQA will carry out their interim sampling to make sure that they're quality assuring the standards as they go through, that the assessments are being assessed fairly and accurately, and that the evidence meets the standards. And then they can provide feedback on an ongoing basis. So it's not all left right to the end. Everyone thinks they've finished, and then the IQA says, oh, well, this is no good, and that doesn't meet the standards, and this is interpreted wrong. So the IQA will give feedback to help that continual development, and they'll also carry out standardisation meetings. And that's where we'll all get together and make sure that everyone is working to the same standards. So then we'll get to the end of the learner's journey. There'll be that final sample for the IQA, and that's when it will get passed to the EQA for sign off. So the EQA, the external quality assurer from the awarding body, will come in, do their final sample, and that's when they'll sign off the portfolios for the learner. So that takes us through then to the last stage. So once everything's been signed off and completed and the learner's achieved, we'll carry out that kind of exit review with the learner. So there's a completion satisfaction survey that the learner can do, and then that will give us an opportunity to discuss the experience that they've had, their learning, and also opportunities for that learner to progress. So do they want to go on to another qualification? Is there something different they want to move into? So what are the progression opportunities for that learner? So those are the key stages of the learner journey. So I just wanted to go through those with you now, so you felt familiar when I go into the next section, which is looking at the learner management system, of how things start to fit into the jigsaw puzzle. So I've talked about the learner management system quite a lot throughout. So it's about time we actually had to look at it. You have your own login, and we'll make sure that this is shared with you. And what I'm going to do today is just show you how easy it is to create a learner. And then I'm going to take you in to access the learning materials, so you can see what your learner is going to be actually going into and doing the learning for. How you can use the library to upload documents, whether that's for Larry for the approval process, or whether that is for your assessors to use to upload additional materials for your learners for each of the different qualifications. And we'll be looking at the guidance documents that are actually already in the laser system to support you. Obviously, I have spoken about work plans and progress reviews today so far, but I'm not going to actually touch on those today, because otherwise you might just end up with overload. So I'm going to cover those off on another session. As we get nearer to the time, I'll show you how you can create the work plans and the reviews for your learners. So let's go into Laser now then. So you'll navigate to the unique URL for yourselves and click on to log in. And then you put in your username. So we've set up the same format for everybody. So it'll be your first name, so in my case, Gillian.ICL, which are your company initials, and then and in this case, admin. So we're going into the admin role. But if it was an assessor, it would be Gillian.ICL.assessor. And then you would log in. And again, making sure that this password is nice and secure, because obviously we're going to have access to personal learning records, which will be included under GDPR. So in here, we've got your home screen, which gives you an overview of where we're at the moment. And on the left-hand side, this is your menu where you navigate around all the key sections. So first off, I'm just going to go into learners. And you can see at the moment, we don't actually have any learners set up. So I'm going to create a dummy learner now under my details. But we can then use this to just show you the systems, and then you can follow suit for your live learners down the line. So if I click on add a new learner here, you can type in the learner's details. So Gillian Courtney, and we create a learner username. So this would be first name, then a dot, and your company initials. So ICL. So that would be my learner login details. Then you would put in an email address. So I'm just going to use this one because I don't think it's been used for anything else yet. There we go. So this has got to be unique to the learner, because it's how we will send login details and course information to them in future. Now at the moment, we don't have to put in anything under the funding provider, but obviously if we do attract funding in future through information that Boris has put out about the healthcare funding budget, then it might be that we will select funding details in here. We then create a password for your learner. So at the moment, we're using ChangeMe123 as a generic password, and this will prompt the learner to change their password when they log in for the first time, so that we can ensure that we're maintaining that security at all times. So that's as simple as it is to create your learner. So you would click on save, and you can see here now the learner we've created appears in your list here. So as you go into your learners menu here, it would give you all the learners down the page here. Okay, so we've now created Gillian, and we need to edit her. So we click on edit, and we will go in, and you can see the initial details that we actually set up about Gillian. And at this point, we can assign the course that she's going to be doing. So if we click on the drop down here under assignment, we can select which course Gillian's going to log into. So we're going to select the Level 3 Diploma in Adult Care for now. And at this point, if we've set up any trainers in the system, which currently we haven't, we'd have a list here of the trainers that we can allocate Gillian to. And that means that as an assessor, I could log in and see Gillian under my allocation and allocate things for Gillian to do. So I will show you how to set up staff members in a moment, so that they would appear here. And then we put in a start and end date for Gillian based on that initial information, advice and guidance that we did. What are the start and end dates that we actually agreed? So we put a start and end date in there. And then we would select a manager. I don't actually have a manager set up, so I'll show you how to create a manager in a moment as well. And at this point, we click on save, so we don't lose all of the information in that section. And the last thing we need to do is we're going to edit Gillian again. So the last thing we're going to do here is scroll down and go to the progress review section. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to do our progress reviews quarterly. So we would then select a date in 3 months' time, and put that in for our progress review to take place. And that will act as our reminder of when we need to carry it out. Now, if you carry it out a little bit earlier or a little bit later, that's not too much of a problem, as long as it's within that sort of time frame. So then we would save this, and that will come through for that learner. So literally it's as simple as that to create your learner and put them into the system. And then they obviously appear in your list here. So you can click on the learner's name as an admin and you can log in and see Gillian's portfolios, what evidence has been uploaded. You can see what activity I've been up to. So if I logged in, done my learning, have I been uploading evidence? Have I only spent 10 minutes in here, or have I spent 10 hours in here doing my work? So you can keep track and make sure that I'm staying on track with my targets that you've set me. And down here, we can run a gap analysis. So I mentioned this one. If we're doing the e-portfolio and we're uploading evidence, we can run the gap analysis to show what criteria haven't been met yet and what we still need to add evidence for. My progress reviews will appear here. So if we click on this one, you'll be able to see that we've scheduled them or things have run, and the evidence will appear here. Obviously, we haven't done them yet, so nothing to show yet. So all of this will be here for your learner. And you can see here, you can track their percentage completion, so you know how far through their qualification they are already. Okay, and it will rag rate to show whether they're on track or what have you. So that's looking at the learner, but I'm not going to go into too much more of that in detail now, because obviously I will go through that a little bit more nearer the time. So let's switch back over to our menu on the left here, and I'll work you through some of these. So if we go into the library first. So at the moment, there's nothing in our library. This is where you can upload your evidence for Larry to support the pre-approval process, or your assessors can go in and create a folder for their qualification and then add any additional resources that they want to use. And I'll show you how easy that is. So if we go into new folder, and I'll give it a folder name. So if I put pre-approval training, I'm going to set it for all users and all courses to be able to access this, and I can save it. And then you can see here in our library, we have that folder already set up. So we could have one for each of the different qualifications that we're actually delivering. And then if you go into that folder, you can then upload evidence. So you could upload different folders, or you could upload a file. So if I click on upload file and I browse, let me go in and find, here we go. So this is the PowerPoint that I've run through with you this morning. It's got some of my links and information in the notes. So this will be useful to you. So I browse to find the document and I click on upload. And there you can see that the PowerPoint's there, so everyone can access it now when they log in. So that means when you log in yourselves a little bit later on, you'll be able to access the PowerPoint I went through with you this morning. And you can upload additional documents here in that way. So that's the library. So that's going to be useful for your assessors to upload additional supporting resources. Also on the left here, we've got the guidance section. And this has got lots of user guides that have been uploaded by Laser to support you in using the system. So it might be things from the learner's point of view of how they can access their work plans. It might be how to set up a manager, which I'll touch on in a moment, through to things for adding trainers or your administrator guidance for using the system. And at the bottom, we've also got some useful videos. So it talks you through the process for adding your work plans, uploading evidence as a learner, and so on. So these are really useful guides that you can work your way through to support you with using the system. Okay, so if we now squeeze down to managers. So I did say that I would show you how to create a manager. So when you've got a new learner working in an employer, they might have a particular manager that you're going to allocate them to. So as simple as it was for us to set up a new learner, we can create a new manager that we're going to allocate them to. And this is going to be the person that's supporting your learner throughout their qualifications. So it might be their mentoring, or they might be able to ensure that the learner's got sufficient evidence at work, or opportunities to demonstrate things for observations, or so on and so forth. So we create that new manager, we put in their details and create them in the new workplace. So we could put in LCTD, for example, and then if you've already used them before, they'd appear in this menu here. So you could just select the employer workplace, but you could create a new manager within the same workplace. So put in that detail, password again, change me 123, so it prompts them to create their own password, and you would save it. And then exactly the same way as it did with the learner, they would come up here as a new manager. Okay, so that's how you can make sure that the managers are there to support your learners when you're creating your new learner. And you would create new staff members in the same way. So at the minute you can see we've got a couple of admin staff set up, and that's me there. And in the same way, we'd have yourself set up as well, whoever's going to be in charge of the registration process for your learners and so on. So I'm not going to go into all of these sections because obviously there's a lot here to go through, but the other important one I just want to touch on now is the courses. So on the left hand side here, we've got our courses, and you can see the course here. I think we're going to deliver the level 3 diploma in adult care. So I'm going to go into this course first, and you can see the course is made up of 91 units, and you can pick key elements in that. So if we go into promote communication in care settings and we click on this first outcome, it will take us into the lessons. And this is where there's loads of resources to support your learners' knowledge requirements. So here you can see there's a tutorial video. There'll be reading materials. So this could be excerpts from documents, from legislation, from books, so that your learner can stay up to date with key information. There's also presentations, case studies and good practice examples, interactive quizzes so that the learner is actually engaged and doing their learning from it. And there's also stretch and challenge things, so extended learning and think and challenge elements as well. So there's lots of resources there for your learner to work through, and this is where you can monitor that they're doing all the learning they need to do to support the assessments. And some of these will actually provide opportunities for your learner to demonstrate assessment criteria through written activities, and you can upload those. So I think they're the key elements that I wanted to take you through for the learner management system. The how to create a learner, how to access the learning materials, and go into the library, upload your documents and access the guidance documents. As I say, in future sessions, we'll go through the work plans and progress reviews and how we can use those to support the learner's journey. But I think that might be a little bit too much for one session today, so we'll cover that nearer the time. So at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and give you an opportunity then for any questions that you may want to ask me. And hopefully you found the session quite useful so far.